Tonight.
This is the CBS Evening News with Ed Bradley substituting for Bob Schieffer.
Good evening. A massive explosion today in a train station in Bologna, Italy, killed at least 76 people and injured almost 200 more. Authorities do not yet know if the explosion was caused by terrorism or accident. Robin Wright reports from Bologna.
The violent explosion ripped apart Bologna's main train station, leaving tons of rubble and an unknown number of bodies trapped beneath. More than 1,000 police, fire, and army officials are involved in the rescue effort, but it is expected to take until late Sunday to determine the final tally of injured and killed. The station had been packed as Italians began the traditional month of vacation. Ambulances raced to and from the station throughout the day. Bologna hospitals are so full that many of the injured were sent to nearby cities. Rescue teams were forced to put on masks because of the stench, intensified by the oppressive heat. Officials involved in the rescue effort claim they do not yet know the cause. However, a right-wing extremist group, the Armed Revolutionary Nucleus, claimed responsibility for planting a bomb. A tape-recorded message to two Italian news organizations said the blast was in honor of Mario Tutti, an imprisoned leader of the group. The Red Brigade, a leftist organization, also claimed credit, but police have so far discounted its involvement. There has been some speculation that there may have been a gas leak or that an overheated boiler exploded, but Bologna's main paper claims the heater has been found intact. Today's explosion comes just 2 days short of the 6th anniversary of a previous bomb attack on the Bologna station that killed 12. Tutti and 7 other extremists are scheduled to be tried for that incident next month. This blast is already being described as the worst disaster of its kind in post-war Italy. And if terrorists are found to be responsible, it may turn out to be the most serious terrorist incident to have occurred in Western Europe. Robin Wright, CBS News, Bologna.
No Americans are known to be among the dead, but Jeff and W.S. Davis of Provo, Utah are listed among the injured. And Irish police said today that 2 Americans were among the 17 people killed in that train crash north of Cork yesterday. Identification was withheld.
When you have questions like these about your money, get professional answers.
Look at all these places we could put our money. Different certificates, different premiums, different interest rates.
Well, we sure could use more interest. But honey, which are the safest? And can we get our money if we need it?
I'm confused. How do you decide what to do?
Keep your checking and savings at a full-service bank and get professional answers to your financial questions. America's full-service banks. We've got the answers.
Joan, I think I just sold the well sculpture.
Wonderful. Have some coffee. Whoa, only half a cup. Don't you like my coffee?
Love the rich taste. It's the caffeine I could do without.
You happen to be drinking Brim decaffeinated coffee.
This is Brim?
This is freeze-dried Brim, and it's decaffeinated, so you don't have to stop at half a cup.
If it tastes this rich, I don't want to stop. Fill it to the rim.
With Brim?
Fill your cup to the rim with rich-tasting Brim, ground or freeze-dried.
The growing movement towards a so-called open convention picked up more support today. Senator Robert Byrd, the majority leader and one of the most powerful Democrats in Congress, today sided with Senator Kennedy on the issue. Phil Jones has the story in Washington.
Senator Byrd's decision to split with the president on the convention rule controversy came after a week of private meetings with Democratic senators who are worried that the party will suffer major losses in November. Byrd became the highest-ranking congressional Democrat to call for defeat of the rule that would require delegates to vote for the candidate for whom they were elected.
In any case, the delegates ought not be bound by decisions that were made 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, or more, in conventions, in primaries, or whatever. If, based on current circumstances, the delegates, in their judgment, would want to support someone else.
Byrd said he expects Mr. Carter to get the nomination, but he was not ready today to say that the president ought to be nominated.
I have said from beginning that I would support the nominee of the Democratic Party. This is a matter for the delegates at the convention to decide. I'm not a delegate. and I will support the nominee.
Reaction to Byrd's comments came from Robert Strauss, Mr. Carter's campaign chairman. Strauss said a few elected officials lack familiarity with party convention rules and fail to understand the basic facts that every single delegate at the convention made a pledge to cast his or her vote for the candidate preferred by the grassroots Democrats who elected them. In New York today, William Ezekiel, head of a presidential campaign committee for Senator Henry Jackson, said telephoning of delegates will begin Monday. This is separate from the open convention movement, and Ezekiel explained the effort this way.
Should both of the major candidates be denied the nomination by the delegates, we will be in a position to identify, number one, former Jackson supporters in the delegation, number two, those delegates who are leaning to Senator Jackson.
Also, close friends of Secretary of State Muskie are considering formation of a Muskie for President committee. And CBS News has learned that Presidential Press Secretary Jody Powell has had discussions with a Muskie aide. Powell concedes that these talks were clearly aimed at trying to put the Muskie candidacy talk to rest. However, Powell and a Muskie aide deny that the Secretary of State has been pressured. But others close to Muskie claim that they have talked with him and that he is irritated by pressure from some of those in the political quarters of the White House. Phil Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Come on home to Chevrolet, come on home today.
Hazel Stain, she came home.
I traded in a Toyota for my new Monza Coupe. I happen to think Monza is a very stylish car, and it rides beautifully.
Not only did Hazel Stange come home, but in the last calendar year, more people have traded their foreign cars for Chevrolet than any car, foreign or domestic.
Come on home to Chevrolet.
Come on home. Your Chevy dealers are having an all-out clearance sale on a great selection of cars and trucks.
How old am I? You can't tell from my hands. See, no unattractive age spots to give me away because of Esoterica medicated cream. Esoterica works below the skin surface to help safely fade brown spots that appear as we grow older. If you use it every day as directed, in 6 weeks your skin can be clearer and younger looking. Look at your own hands right now. Try Esoterica for skin that says beautiful things.
Iranian-American relations seem to worsen today. On this, the 273rd day of captivity for the American hostages, some Muslim militants in Tehran went on a hunger strike. They were protesting what they called American police brutality toward Iranian prisoners in this country. That's a reference to those Iranians who were arrested in Washington, D.C. during the demonstration. More on their situation from Rita Flynn.
Late last night, 192 Iranians were turned over to immigration and naturalization officials after disorderly conduct charges stemming from last Sunday's demonstrations were dropped. The Iranians were transported from the Washington area to 2 federal prisons in New York State because most still refuse to identify themselves.
The Attorney General issued a directive last November that all aliens would have to answer questions put to them by immigration officers. The mere failure to give information is a ground for deportation.
At the White House, sympathizers continued a hunger strike to protest police and INS treatment of the 192 Iranians. An attorney representing the jailed Iranians charged last night that many are in poor physical condition.
These men who are leaving now, one of them has been diagnosed as having pneumonia. There's a man on there with a bleeding ulcer. There are people on there who are too weak to walk. They have been diagnosed as suffering from gastroenteritis, from dehydration. They are still on a hunger strike.
Government officials say they are being provided with good medical care.
Anybody who is in need of medical attention will get it, and anybody who needs to be hospitalized will be hospitalized.
Authorities say one of the jailed Iranians was hospitalized in New York today. 2 others were fed intravenously before departing Washington last night. Acting INS Commissioner Crossland says those Iranians willing to identify themselves and found to be in the United States legally will be released. He says those unwilling to comply will be the subject of deportation proceedings beginning Monday. And he says any of the jailed Iranian aliens wishing to leave the country will be flown back to Iran immediately. Rita Flynn, CBS News, Washington.
President Carter has decided to increase the Cuban refugee population of the Fort Chaffee, Arkansas Relocation Center for a few months. The news is not sitting well with Arkansas's governors, senators, nor the people who live near Fort Chaffee. David Dick reports.
With the Cuban refugee population down to a far more manageable 5,600, the mood inside Fort Chaffee seemed as pleasant as a picnic. But when the refugee population peaked at 19,000, there was trouble. June 1st, a riot, there was burning, and Cubans were escaping. Residents of nearby towns counter-demonstrated, and the local people began arming themselves. Order was restored with no known deaths.
After the June 1st riot, a reinforced fence was built around Fort Chaffee to keep the Cubans in.
But now, with the decision to move another 6,000 to 7,000 refugees here from other parts of the country, the reaction has been immediate and almost all of it negative. It involves presidential politics and a charge even among Democrats that Mr. Carter and his aides did not keep their promise.
Well, to be honest, I'm very angered about it right now because on June the 3rd, the president in the Oval Office committed to Senator Bumpers and myself that Chaffee would not be expanded and that it would not be a permanent facility. The only thing I can say is that he broke his commitment and he's broken faith with the people of our state.
We all felt that we had a commitment that under no circumstances would the number be increased from whatever it was at any given time. And so I think it's just a frustrating experience, and I'm disappointed.
A White House aide defended the move today, saying Fort Chaffee's use would be extended only a few months.
What we're doing is consolidating in a way that saves the taxpayers of this country money and that will expedite the long-term resettlement in Cuban communities around the country away from Arkansas. I've talked with the governor. I've talked with the two senators, and I understand their view, and they have counseled me, and I think it's one of these things that has to be done.
Reaction among the townspeople of nearby Barling, Arkansas, reflect a general feeling of anger and dismay.
Hell, if they come, they come, and if they don't, well, it's all right either way it goes. I don't think we need them. I think that we were doing real good without them.
I feel like they should be scattered over the United States instead of dumping them in one place.
For my sake, I wouldn't care if they burned the whole camp down.
Security at Fort Chaffee has been tightened as the military prepares for the arrival of the latest refugees here in a few weeks. David Dick, CBS News, Fort Chaffee, Arkansas.
Talks about Palestinian autonomy were supposed to start in Egypt on Monday, but President Sadat, angry with Israel for passing a law annexing East Jerusalem into its capital, has sent letters, presumably protesting the action, to President Carter and Prime Minister Begin, and he wants their answers before the talks start. Egyptian officials insist Sadat is not calling off or suspending the talks.
You would expect type like this from a fine office typewriter, but it's coming off a Cuban character printer faster than you can read it. And the people of ITT build this Cuban printer with two heads that can print two languages at once. By changing print wheels, this ITT printer will type in 94 faces and sizes, which makes it useful for international business or technical fields, even if you can't keep up with it.
It's coming. It's taking over in offices coast to coast. It's the paper blob. It's packed with important papers that should move out of your office fast, but can't get loose. This is a job for Federal Express. For as little as $19, we'll pick up your important papers and deliver them clear across the country overnight, so you'll never have to worry about the paper blob again. Federal Express, when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight.
The heat wave baking the Southwest for the past 6 weeks may not end until fall. That's bad news for area farmers hard hit already. And in 6 states, it's even worse news because the heat hurting the crops doesn't bother a plague of grasshoppers that are feeding on them. Derek Blakely reports.
Grasshoppers have already infested 10% of South Dakota's farmland during this dry summer. Pierre Barnes' corn crop has been decimated by a lack of rain, and what the drought didn't get, the hoppers will.
If we don't spray it or something, why, they'll just chew it down to nubs here.
For crop dusters like Cecil Ice, the grasshopper's attack means brisk business. He's got all the work he can handle.
The whole countryside's infested, all the prairie land and everything has hoppers in.
The grasshoppers have already chewed Willie Cowan's corn and chomped through much of his alfalfa, stripping the stems of vegetation, leaving the stalks bare and brown. Cowan is spraying to control the hoppers, but it's expensive, and the results, at best, only temporary.
It might be the answer for a little while. It definitely won't kill them. It'll probably move them to my neighbor's field.
Experts say only 8 grasshoppers per square yard will eat as much as a cow, causing considerable damage. But more than 100 hoppers a square yard can be found here. The voracious hoppers are costing South Dakota farmers at least $15 million this year, and without wet weather during the hatching season next spring, there'll be even more hoppers next year. Derek Blakely, CBS News, Blunt, South Dakota.
Jamestown, New York, like a lot of other communities, has seen its local economy wither for reasons having little to do with the heat. But as Jerry Landay reports, Jamestown residents have cooked up a plan to rescue the local economy. A dose of cooperation, and it's working.
Things are booming in Jamestown, recession or no. Despite the nationwide slowdown and industrial decline in the old mill towns of the Northeast, Jamestown's workforce has remained stable. Its employers report productivity and profits are up. Not so long ago, it was a different story.
Back in the late 60s and early 70s, Jamestown was notorious as a bad labor town. Long bitter strikes of epidemic proportions, aging plants, companies pulling out or threatening to, taking jobs with them. Jamestown was dying.
To try to save the city and erase its poor labor image, 15 officials of labor and industry formed the Jamestown Area Labor Management Committee. With prodding from local government, the committee set out to end the bickering and improve labor relations, attract new industries, and hike productivity, not as traditional adversaries, but as partners. Joe Mason of the International Association of Machinists was one of the charter union members of the committee.
The companies were, in my own words, I would say they weren't the big bad people that we had anticipated they were. And I think some of them recognized that some of our demands and some of us people weren't as bad as we were let off to be.
Mayor Stephen Carlson is the principal government representative on the committee.
As a result of the labor management activities in the past 8 years, strikes in this community have been reduced by 50%.
2 out of the last 3 contracts that we have settled here, we in fact have settled early, 5 months early and 4 months early. And we were the first ones in the Jamestown area to ever have settled a contract on an early bird basis.
The Dahlstrom Company, which makes specialized metal cabinetry for electronic equipment, was about to be closed by its owners. Encouraged by the new climate, Bolton bought the business, saved 150 jobs, and has since created 200 new ones. An in-plant workers committee has helped Bolton redesign this production line, which now accounts for 15% of Bolton's $13 million a year business. At Holtz Windows in Jamestown, a marginally successful company 5 years ago, a worker management pricing committee collaborates on the company's bids on major construction jobs, boosting the company's rate of success from 10 to 50%. Sales have more than doubled, and workers cash in on a productivity arrangement.
I don't believe you have a bunch of ignorant people in the factories. These people in the factories know more about making windows than probably I do, and I consider myself a pretty good manufacturing engineer.
In-plant committees have been a key to the Jamestown experiment. Workers helped management's industrial engineers modify plans for the total redesign of Carborundum's Monofrax plant, which makes the ceramic linings for glass furnaces. Those modifications saved the company more than $2 million, and Carborundum's introducing the idea in several of its other operations. Shop floor democracy is an old established idea in European industry, but it's been slow to take hold in America, where managers say they catch the scent of socialism, and big labor fears it means selling out to the bosses. Bob Franco, president of a local at Carborundum, disagrees.
Now, we do not jeopardize our position as union leaders. We don't sleep in the same damn bed as company does. But I think you need another route. I think you need another way to talk. Because it's just like any other kind of a marriage. If you don't talk to your wife, you don't know her troubles.
Jerry Landay, CBS News, Jamestown, New York.
Seems like everybody's dieting. Some people are even losing weight. They are on the AIDS diet plan. AIDS has 4 different products. This one works for me.
AIDS is an effective appetite suppressant.
Helps curb my appetite, so I stay on my diet. Seems there's a right AIDS product for every dieter.
And I know they work, because these days, there's a lot more room in my elevator. AIDS, a name you can trust in more ways than one. Try AIDS Time Release multivitamins and minerals for dieters, too.
They're not in here.
Honey!
Come on, let's go.
It's over there.
Hey, whoa, what's happened?
We lost all our traveler's checks.
Oh, that's too bad. What kind were they?
American Express.
American Express. Relax. Let's call them.
Great. You can call for help anytime from anywhere in the country with American Express traveler's checks. Ask for them by name.
Senator Byrd, at his meeting with reporters today, also said he does not believe in family diplomacy. He said the handling of the Billy Carter affair by the president and his advisors was an example of bad judgment and rather amateurish handling of foreign policy. He also said, however, he doesn't think the president or his advisors are guilty of any wrongdoing. We have a report from Jacqueline Adams on the latest from the White House and Billy Carter.
Although the president said earlier this week he did not recall giving his brother any State Department cables, late last night the White House released a confidential 1978 cable which the president had mailed to his brother. Press Secretary Jody Powell said it had been sent to the White House earlier in the day by Billy Carter's attorneys. The cable was a favorable assessment of Billy Carter's 1978 visit to Libya, and on it the president wrote, "To Billy, you did a good job under the dry circumstances. Jimmy." The dry comment refers to the fact that Libya, a Muslim country, does not allow alcoholic beverages to be served. In Georgia today, Billy Carter refused to discuss the contents of the cable.
The only thing I know about that, it didn't go into details, is what Sonny called his office last night and told me about it. That's the only thing I know. I don't want to make any comment on it because I'm not sure what they released.
2 letters and a cable from the U.S. charge in Libya to the State Department were released today. Spokesman Powell said the letters were, to the best of our knowledge, essentially all the communications about Billy's 1979 trip to Libya. The letters and cable detail Billy's comings and goings, and one, dated September 12, 1979, while Billy Carter was still in Libya, said he is quite apolitical and would not be useful as a conduit to Gaddafi on specific substance. He presumably hopes eventually to have some direct or indirect business dealings here, though he said nothing about this, and I did not probe. One of Billy Carter's traveling companions was Georgia State Senator Floyd Hudgens. In a copyrighted story in today's San Diego Union, Hudgens said he felt double-crossed when he learned that Billy Carter had received $220,000 from the Libyans. Hudgens said he and Billy's other partners had hoped to earn millions in commissions from the Libyans, and that Billy said he deserved a 40% share because of his White House connections. Hudgens also said Billy Carter showed State Department cables to his partners about their trips to Tripoli. President Carter and 4 of his advisors on the Billy Carter-Libya controversy are at Camp David this weekend, polishing the draft of a report to the Senate Investigating Committee. The president hopes to finish the report in time for release on Monday. But White House spokesman Powell said that if something of major importance does come up over the weekend, the president may delay release of the report. Jacqueline Adams, CBS News at the White House.
A Gallup poll done for Newsweek magazine on the presidential race shows that Billy Carter's dealings with Libya did not affect how most of those polled earlier this week felt about the president. Still, in a 3-way race with Ronald Reagan and John Anderson, the strongest Democratic candidate would be Secretary of State Muskie, who narrowly edged President Carter in the poll. However, against each of the Democratic candidates, Ronald Reagan was the choice of those polled. Today marked the final full day of competition at the Moscow Olympics, and it was a good day for the Cubans and Teofilio Stevenson. The Cuban heavyweight outfought his Soviet opponent, Piotr Zayev, and became the first heavyweight ever to win the gold in that event in 3 successive Olympic Games. Stevenson scored no knockout today, but outpointed his Soviet opponent in a split 4-1 decision. Though the U.S. has officially boycotted the Moscow Games, a handful of Americans have participated. In fact, 2 of them ended up in the basketball competition, and what's more, they were not on the same side. Steve Young has a report.
This week, Italy played Spain, and that produced one of the remarkable moments of the Olympic Games.
Mike Sylvester, number 6, an American on the Italian team, playing against Wayne Brabender, number 4, for a dozen years an American fixture on the Spanish team. Born in Cincinnati, Sylvester graduated from the University of Dayton. He holds both a U.S. and Italian passport, lives in Italy, and was one of the few Americans who took part in the Moscow Olympics.
Playing in the Olympics is a duty, not a choice, if you're an Italian citizen. So, starting from the ground and going up, I had no choice. If I didn't play, I was disqualified for life in the Italian Basketball League. So that made my decision a lot easier. I morally was completely for the boycott. It turned out very badly because a lot of our so-called allies didn't back us up, and it made us look kind of ridiculous in the end.
Sylvester says he has no sense of guilt that he got a chance to compete, something denied the U.S. basketball squad.
The guys involved in track and field that work and really work for 4 straight years preparing for their big chance, to have that taken away in one shot, they're the ones that have been really used in this whole situation. The basketball players too, I don't doubt that, but the basketball players have another chance. They can turn professional.
Sylvester had not seen his wife and 5-month-old child for 6 weeks because of travel and training and had been playing badly. His coach thought that starting him against Brabender might help Sylvester snap out of his slump. Sylvester said it didn't feel like a contest between Americans.
I'm not here considering myself an American. I'm here considering myself an Italian. I'm with the Italian group. I eat the way they eat, I sleep when they sleep, and I do everything they do. And I don't feel that I'm here as an American.
Sylvester was one of the heroes of the game. He scored 16 points, helping Italy go on to victory in the semifinals.
I think most Americans, though, would regard you as a more convincing kid from Cincinnati than an Italian.
Well, I'm still a Cincinnati kid, and I'll be returning there one of these days. But like I say, I've been caught up in this super delicate situation, and I have to look at both sides of it and be realistic.
In the final game, Sylvester and the Italians were swept aside by a stronger team from Yugoslavia, which won the gold. It was only the second time since basketball was introduced to the Olympics in 1936 that anyone except the U.S. had taken the title. But the Cincinnati Kid did get a silver, the only American to win a medal at the 1980 Summer Games. Steve Young, CBS News, Moscow. That's our report this Saturday. I'm Ed Bradley, CBS News. Good night.
I'm Johnny Bench, and I know how to prevent runs. This is how I do it at home plate. And this is how I do it at home with Krylon spray paint. Krylon goes on easy on metal or wood. The special quick-dry formula helps prevent runs and drips. So you get a smooth, professional finish in as little as 2 hours.
Johnny, the table looks great.
Yep, no runs, no drips, no errors. Krylon, for the do-it-yourself professional finish.
When I've got minor arthritis pain, I need help. So I turn to the warming power of Bengay. Bengay's got warming power I apply right where it hurts. I rub in Bengay and feel that glorious warming power really deep, drawing the pain right out for hours of relief. No wonder Bengay is America's #1 selling arthritis rub. It's got warming power.
When arthritis pain grips you, break the grip of pain with Bengay.
This has been the CBS Evening News, with Ed Bradley substituting for Bob Schieffer. Tomorrow's guest on Face the Nation will be Edward Bennett Williams, chairman of the Committee for an Open Convention.
If your wife's not working, the husband's got to work 2 jobs to make ends meet.
Do the Democrats have an answer? Convention coverage begins August 11th on CBS.
This is CBS.